All right, so we've got our site boundaries identified and our utilities and other line work appropriately assigned. Again, it's the key to that is having it on the proper layers. Because in the takeoff, like I said, under categorize, when you're in the category under design, you can see that we've got objects or layers that contain boundaries. We also have some other layers that contain what are called cross-sectional areas. So our curb and gutter, our curb and gutter in this case has a cross-sectional area that is set up in the material site improvement manager. So if I go to the improvement manager and we look under materials, I look under paving, I can see here that I've got a concrete material. But if I look under the site improvements and we go to our concrete curbing, I have these different types of curb. So based on the type of curb, in this case these concrete curb and gutter, CG2 is a 6-inch curb and it has a specific cross-sectional area. This one here has a different cross-sectional area. You can see that I'm applying the material to it. So these are 4,000 psi curbs. This one here is a 3,000 psi curb. So not only can I control the cross-sectional area, but I can also control the type of material, or in this case concrete, that's used to construct that site improvement. Right, so that's the one thing that I have. The other thing that you have under utilities in this case, you can see I've got information that accounts for the lines, or the sanitary sewers in this case, the types of pipes. So I've got a storm class 3 15-inch RCP and a 24-inch RCP. Now we also have one where we did the 18-inch RCP pipe, right? We set this one pipe on that layer. So what we want to do is, if we go to unknown, we want to go over and look for that layer. All right, so if I come over to the end here, I've got this utility storm class 3 18-inch RCP. We want to make sure we put that in the utility, so I'm going to reassign that to utilities. And then when I go to utilities, you can see here it needs to have some site improvements on it. So when I go to site improvement, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to associate that with a site improvement. So on that layer, if I was to come in here, this is my material list. All right, so if I come up, or my site improvement list, if I come down here, I've got storm drainage VDOT 18-inch class 3 RCP. So I'm going to select that. If I didn't have it in the list, I could go to the material site improvement manager and I could actually create it. So you can see here under site improvements, this is being measured by that icon, which is being measured in length. I can do slope length or a planimetric length. If you look at the catch basins, you can see these are unit, or these are count. So if I right click on this and I do a new site improvement, I can choose what type of improvement it is, whether it's area, linear with cross section, or count. All right, so these are already set up. So I'm going to define this as my 18-inch RCP, and I'm going to make sure that it's part of my categorized takeoff layers. So again, I've got it listed there, and I'm going to hit close. Okay, so that's the key to making sure that this all works, and it's fairly easy to get set up and configure once you get doing it. Now we're going to identify our site regions. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select design, and I'm going to start adding my site improvements. I'm going to put my site improvements on a layer called site improvements. This puts a little marker that identifies where that area is. I'm going to come down here and identify the areas. We'll start with the building pad, so we'll just call this main building. I'll pick the location and I'm just going to click in the middle of the building. Okay. Now nothing's going to happen in 3D, so we're just going to focus on the 2D view here. Next, we'll work in the back. We'll start back here, and what we'll do is we'll add our heavy duty concrete. So let's name this loading dock, and I'm going to pick in here. Then we'll come in here, we'll say compactor pad, and we'll add that over here. We'll then come in and do our heavy duty pavement. So we'll just call it travel lanes, right? And we'll pick that. So there's our heavy duty paving, and then we'll switch over to our light duty paving. We'll just call this parking. Let's go parking areas, and we'll set that here and here and here as well as in the middle. Okay. Then we want to add our sidewalk. So we'll just call this front building, and we'll just pick these areas here. Now the rest of these areas are going to be sod, so we're going to choose this topsoil 4-inch replacement. And if we take a look at this, you can see by checking, we can see that it doesn't have, it's just a replacement. Now I want to put in some sod, so I'm going to choose the material that's going to be set here as sod, and we're going to set that to 2 inches thick. You can see it's also going to put in and replace any additional topsoil or extra topsoil we have. It's going to respread it into, use it into these areas, right, at 4 inches thick. So I'm going to hit close. Actually, before I hit close, let's go ahead and do this topsoil here. I'm going to use this one for the seeded areas. I'm going to put 6 inches of topsoil for the seeded areas. And then we're going to do 8 inches of topsoil, and what we'll do here is, actually let's just replace this one with sod. You can see it's using the sod mat, and it's got a 1.8 inches thick, and it's got 6 inches of replacement material. Okay, so we maybe use that in the pond area just as an example. We could create another type of material that could be used in the pond area to account for that as well. All right, so I'm just going to close this, and I'm going to use the 4-inch replacement, and we're just going to call this islands. And I'm just going to drop this in, and let's say we're going to seed in these islands. We could use concrete, we could use pavers. I'm just going to say building areas, and we'll put sod there. Okay, so it's going to flood that. This outer here is where we're going to put seed, so I'm going to change this over to this area. We're just going to call it seeded area, or side slopes. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in there. And then we'll do the pond. All right, so I'm going to break out the pond, and maybe we're going to seed that as well. All right, or we could use topsoil replacement here. Let's just make it different. We'll do topsoil replacement, and we're just going to pick inside the pond. All right. So now that I have all those, I can close this. If I want to validate this, I can come up and validate the areas. And what that'll do is it'll actually shade in those areas for me, and I can use this to plot it, publish it, or whatever. Okay. So that's pretty much it. You're just identifying where these site improvements are and dropping in the improvement. Now, if you made a mistake, you can always go back and remove. So if I go to design and I change this to remove, I can remove this information here, and then I could always add it back. So you can see it doesn't change the validate. So if I just revalidate it and I hit apply, it will now update that area. Okay. So again, I'm just working back and forth. I'm just going to go back to identify site regions. Let's add that pond information back in. So we'll come down and do the 6-inch. I'll do pond, and we'll pick that location there. Close that, and then just revalidate to show those. Now you can also name them. You can name and label the site regions if you want. All right. We're not going to do that in this case. So that's pretty much applying these site improvement areas. We've got everything layered. We got all our improvements in. Now the next step would be to create the report. We'll show you that next.